The dawn of August 6, 1945, in Hiroshima seemed peaceful. The sky was clear, Buddhist temples rang their bells, the markets filled with voices and hurried footsteps. The city had heard rumors that it might soon be attacked, but nothing had happened yet. For many, that calm was mistaken for safety. No one could imagine that in just a few hours, everything would be reduced to ashes. High above the Pacific, a silver plane crossed the sky. Its name, Enola Gay. Its mission, to change history forever. Inside it carried a weapon humanity had never seen before. It wasn't just an ordinary explosive. It was the condensed power of the sun, trapped inside a bomb barely 3 meters long, waiting to awaken. The pilots knew that what they were about to release had no comparison with anything man had ever created. At 8:15 in the morning, the plane's bay doors opened. The device began to fall slowly, as if time itself had stopped. Below, no one looked up. No one understood that the object in the sky meant the end of thousands of lives. And then, the world split in two. A flash, brighter than 1,000 suns, lit up the entire horizon. For a moment, Hiroshima ceased to exist as a city and became an ocean of fire. The ground shook, houses flew away like dry leaves, the streets split into burning cracks. A shockwave devoured everything in its path with a force beyond description. More than 70,000 people vanished in an instant, disintegrated, reduced to shadows etched into walls, ghostly imprints that time would never erase. But death did not come alone. The pressure shattered windows miles away, hurled bodies into the air, tore skin and clothes in seconds. Those who survived the initial impact became witnesses to a living hell. Men, women, and children wandered aimlessly, with skin hanging from their arms, eyes filled with ash, and an overwhelming silence broken only by screams of pain.
Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and leave a like, so you won't miss the most fascinating chapters of history.
The heat was so intense that steel bent like butter. The waters of the rivers boiled, and thousands of desperate people jumped in seeking relief, only to die burned by the steam. In the temples, sacred statues melted as if weeping tears of stone. Even the air was poison, invisible, relentless, charged with radiation that began to infect the bodies of the survivors. The most disturbing truth is that Hiroshima was not chosen by chance. The United States needed an untouched target, free from previous bombings, to evaluate the real power of its new creation. The city, far from being the most militarized, was selected as a living laboratory. The Manhattan Project had consumed years of secrets, science, and millions of dollars. Now, its result was being tested on human flesh. Hiroshima became the darkest experiment in history. In the hours that followed, hell spread in invisible forms. People began to sicken without visible wounds. Hair falling out in clumps, endless vomiting, fevers that consumed life within days. It was a silent enemy no one could fight, radiation. Survivors called it the Black Plague of the atom, a curse that could not be seen or touched, but marked their bodies with a slow, inevitable sentence. And yet, the most haunting part was still to come. Because while Hiroshima burned, another plane at another base was preparing. Nagasaki didn't know it, but destiny had reserved the same hell for them. In Nagasaki, the sky was covered with clouds. It was August 9, 1945. 3 days after Hiroshima, humanity was about to repeat the same act. But with an unexpected twist. The original target was not Nagasaki. It was the city of Kokura. However, clouds and smoke from a previous bombing covered the area, and the pilots could not identify their target. With little fuel left and under pressure, they decided to head for the secondary target, Nagasaki. A single cloud changed the destiny of thousands of lives. The bomb carried a sinister name, Fat Man. Unlike the one dropped on Hiroshima, which used uranium, this one contained plutonium, far more devastating. At 11:02 in the morning, the city was illuminated by an explosion that split the day in two. A blinding flash, a roar that ripped apart mountains of concrete, and a fireball that consumed everything it touched. In seconds, tens of thousands of people ceased to exist. The valley of Nagasaki amplified the destruction. Neighborhoods were wiped out, factories melted like wax, and survivors wandered like living shadows, their skin hanging loose, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Witnesses said the silence afterward was so absolute it became unbearable. Only the broken moans of the wounded filled the poisoned air. The most disturbing part was not just the explosion. It was what remained afterward. Radiation began slowly devouring those who had survived the initial fire. Days, weeks, months later, thousands more would die from fevers, hemorrhages, hair loss, and illnesses no one understood. Doctors did not know how to treat this invisible evil. Humanity had opened the door to an unknown horror. When the news reached the world, the impact was immediate. For the first time, human beings understood that war had reached a point of no return. Hiroshima had been a warning. Nagasaki the confirmation that man was capable of annihilating himself. Some celebrated the end of the war, while others were horrified at the price paid. Even the scientists of the Manhattan Project fell silent, wondering if they had unleashed a power that never should have been used. Emperor Hirohito, until then distant from military decisions, addressed his people. In a historic speech, he announced Japan's unconditional surrender. For the first time, the emperor's voice was heard on radios across the country. He said he accepted defeat to prevent the complete destruction of the nation. Japan bowed, not to the Allied armies, but to the power of the atom, but the dilemma remained: was the second bomb necessary? Many argue that Japan was already on the verge of surrender after Hiroshima. Others claim that Nagasaki was the final blow that forced the emperor to act. The truth is that, beyond politics, thousands of innocents paid the price for a decision made thousands of miles away. The world was never the same again. Hiroshima and Nagasaki did not just destroy cities. They destroyed the illusion that war had limits. They opened an era where a single button could decide the fate of millions. An era in which fear became part of daily life. From that day forward, every international conflict carried the shadow of nuclear disaster. Looking back, we realize it was not just the end of World War II. It was the beginning of a new war, colder, quieter, but just as terrifying. The war of atomic fear. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were the warning. The eternal reminder that mankind crossed a line from which it will never return. Humanity learned that the real enemy was not in another nation, nor in another army, but in the destructive power it had created itself.